Hey YouTube Fronks, brief explanation on how I conduct account reviews on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Xlice. On my Twitch channel, there's a channel point redemption reward available on random days. For 20,000 channel points, I'll review your Genshin account. This takes around 1 to 2 weeks of watching and lurking the stream. On these random days, I will only do up to 5, and the redemption is on a first come, first served basis, open at the very start of the stream. When I say at the very start, I mean the literal first 10 seconds of when I press go live. I don't review a large amount of accounts as I prefer quality over quantity. Because of this, I highly recommend watching existing ones already on the YouTube channel. My tendencies are very similar and the patterns of what I look for are mostly the same. A lot of my viewers learn from existing reviews and end up not needing to redeem anything. How they work. With your consent, I will log onto your account, PC, mobile, or PlayStation, as long as you have a link to MiHoYo account, and I will interactively review your account on stream. I analyze your characters, weapons, artifacts to see what I can recommend for building around your favorite characters for Spiral Abyss or general compositions if Abyss is not your priority. Depending on the situation, I may rework your account, but in most cases, this isn't necessary. Lastly, I will never reach out to you first regarding these account reviews. Please be cautious. And that's it. Hope YouTube frogs enjoy it. Welcome back, YouTube frogs, to another account review video. This time we're going to be tackling things a little differently. You guys are probably used to one single review with everything involved, including artifact rules. I wanted to try something new and receive your feedback on how you like this type of video. We're going to be speedrunning 5 different reviews, focusing mostly on their characters, weapon options, and team composition design. We'll be minimizing artifact rolling and maximizing my thought process on building for current Abyss. Most of these accounts are for floor 12, so unfortunately for this video there's not much footage for my thought process on floor 11 and lower. I'll also be adding a voice-over commentary instead of the audio from the actual review to give more of a streamlined thought process that would not be possible live. Let me know what you think in the comments below of this additional style, because it allows me as a creator to have more flexibility when choosing account reviews to upload. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's begin. Okay, so the first account for the speedrun reviews is for CFR Goom. This one was quick. It was a team composition building one, and this account is AR53, 27 star on the current Abyss, with just to focus on floor 12 as the remainder of their challenge. I took a peek at their challenge summary because I wanted to see how they did on the previous rotation, also before 2.0 Abyss. So it looks like they were 31 star before 2.0 Abyss, so working through floor 12. And then for the new Abyss in 2.0, they started with 24 star before, but now they're already 27 star. So the units that they have, immediately noticing aEggLol freeze comp. Hu Tao I would prefer to do reverse vaporize, but because Xingqiu is the only hydro support that they have, we're gonna have to see how we build around it, because aEggLol freeze comp would most likely use Xingqiu, and that would leave a sort of overload comp for the other power DPS, so maybe Yoimiya would be a better choice. Depends on investment of their characters. Their aEggLol is 4 Blizzard, relatively decent stats, a little bit lower crit rate than I would like. Kazuha's is elemental mastery based. Yoimiya seems to have pretty good stats, and then Hu Tao is 30k HP with decent stats as well. Sucrose, because most likely going to be used for aEggLol side, Diana for aEggLol side as well. And then I wanted to see if the Rosaria was invested in, but it had no crit rate investment, so I doubt that they were going to use her. Fischl seemed to be well invested, so it looks to be some sort of potential sub-DPS Fischl here. And then Xingqiu, I think, just had low base attack due to the weapon. Then it was like a mix. High base attack, basically 0 crit, decent recharge, a little bit of HP. For CFR's second half, I decided to go with aEggLol freeze comp. This is a standard composition built off of Xingqiu. And for the first half, Though both Hu Tao and Yoimiya were both well invested in, they do not have a hydro support to support, for example, reverse vaporize Hu Tao, which would be much stronger. So in this case, I recommended that they do a overload Yoimiya comp, but honestly, this could go either way. You could also put Hu Tao in Yoimiya's spot and do perfectly fine. And I chose to use Fischl here instead of Beidou because Beidou didn't look to be invested in right now. So I took a brief glimpse at their weapons. They had Mistsplitter aEggLol, Thundering Pulse Yoimiya, Deathmatch Hu Tao, Aquila Bennett. Seems like all the supports had their weapons of choice. Iridescent Fischl, I think, could have been stringless here, but I didn't want them to reinvest weapons. That was up to them to choose. And then the only thing I was mainly concerned about here was Sucrose was on Witsith, and I felt like Favonius could have been better because she's not responsible for doing damage in the aEggLol composition, though she can. They had a lot of Favonius refinements, so I felt like Sucrose could become a good battery for the aEggLol side because aEggLol is pretty hungry for energy to be able to output burst damage. So I decided to switch over to Favonius, and I mentioned to them because they're using Favonius Codex, it would be beneficial if they ran a crit chance mask on her. They already had random pieces on their Sucrose, so this is just a benefit for the Favonius weapon passive for energy battery. But yeah, I think that's mostly it. Beidou Fischl are either or for the overload Yoimiya comp. Depends on their preference. But generally good progress. 27 star Abyss at AR53. Just a quick team comp review. Alright, so this next account for Stained Chivalry. This was an AR56 account. This was more focused on a Hu Tao improvement and also team composition design. So I first offered them to do a Melt Ganyu, and I think both Freeze Ganyu and Melt Ganyu are both viable choices here. I opted with Melt Ganyu here depending on the strength here. Freeze Ganyu is also perfectly viable. Freeze Ganyu is also perfectly viable, depends on their artifact sets. And then I did a reverse Vaporize Hu Tao. The Melt Ganyu was the correct choice here because they already have 4 Wanderer's Troop here. If they were a 4 Blizzard Ganyu, then I would definitely opt for the Mono-oriented Blizzard Ganyu. So that was just to make sure that composition that I was presenting them wasn't against their build. Because Ganyu has 2 different builds, right? 4 Wanderers Melt versus 4 Blizzard Freeze. Unfortunately, they don't have Kazuha to improve the Melt Ganyu side, so they're using Sucrose for the Elemental Mastery transfer. This is a standard Melt Ganyu composition with Xiangling Ganyu. Sucrose, where typically the Sucrose would be Kazuha here. First half, I chose a standard Hu Tao Xingqiu reverse vaporize composition with Daon as a shielder and healer, and then Jean for standalone support. Other alternatives here could have been Tartag. They could have done double Hydro here with Tartag Riptide procs. So the other composition was the Tartag Daon one I mentioned. This is kind of a half freeze, half reverse vaporize with Hu Tao, depending on whose rotation is available. Okay, so I took a look at their triple crowned Hu Tao here. They were running a random set, so don't be fooled by the Two Maidens Beloved. They just put on good artifacts. And this is an important thing when you guys are trying to build your team compositions. I highly recommend that you guys focus on main stats and subsets of pieces first before you try to force set bonus. I would rather see no set bonus, but able to have good crit rate, good crit damage with decent attack or HP, depending on if you're Hu Tao or attack-based DPS, and then the Elemental Goblet, as well as a little bit of recharge. So Hu Tao had pretty good pieces in general, 30k HP, 47 to 13. I would have liked to increase the crit rate a little bit. Taking a look at their supports now. Just looking at talent levels, making sure that they're decently well invested in. And then specifically for Hu Tao here, I believe that they recommended that I switch. They wanted to see the difference between a crit damage mass and the crit rate mass that they had on MC. And I definitely recommended them switch. So instead of 47 to 13, this build is a much more consistent build at 78 crit and 170 crit damage. So we sacrificed 40 crit damage here, but we gained like 31 crit rate, which is definitely worth. But yeah, generally good pieces with no set bonus needed. Totally fine. Their Hu Tao, as you guys saw there, their Hu Tao was 30k HP with 170, but their set bonus was 2 Lava Walker, 2 Maidens. So again, please focus on the stats, the main stat and the substat first before you force set bonus. This is Xlice's account. We start off in their account and they glitched underneath, and this pin said end her. So here's another case of a floor 12 composition design. They already 27 starred floor 9 to floor 11. Looking at their units, they do have Zhongli. They have a level 90 MC, Hu Tao 90, Klee 90, a lot of Pyro DPS characters. Just going over their character stats, Zhongli seems decently well built. Hu Tao's decently well built, 31k HP, 60 to 11. Jean, unfortunately, not invested in, level 40 here. Seems to have a limited roster, mostly Pyro DPS. You can see that about half of their characters are Pyro. So they had 2 options, right? So they had a bunch of Pyro DPS, but they also had a well-invested official. So I was considering maybe using Xingqiu in part of a national team composition. I think that would kind of not be able to use a lot of their other Pyro DPS. So instead I opted for a kind of different build. The second half was utilizing their built official to do a physical DPS official composition. With Zhongli for the general resistance shred and durability, Xingqiu for the electro charge proc, and then Diana for superconduct. So this is a standard official main DPS build, and then I kind of launched their Pyro DPS into one specific team comp, and then just rely on Sucrose's Viridescent Shred to be able to reduce the resistances. Kazuha would obviously be the choice here over Sucrose because he could also be able to buff the team's Pyro damage, but they don't have that. And I'm trying to utilize like half of their Pyro units without screwing over their supports. However, I did give them other options, right? So these are the other options. There was the main DPS official option. There was also the Cleed Reverse Vaporize composition with Zhongli to prevent interruption during charge attacks. And then another alternative was a KO-oriented Melt Hu Tao composition, which would be basically like rotating cryo, right? So I think this utilizes their Pyro compositions fairly well because we have Xingqiu doing Reverse Vaporize for Klee, and then we have Hu Tao as kind of an aura around Hu Tao, and Hu Tao is melee stance. So definitely an alternative to doing like the official comp. And I mentioned that either Sucrose or Zhongli on either side would be perfectly fine because Sucrose clusters Klee's bombs, but Zhongli provides survivability. And for Hu Tao's side, Zhongli would be additional shielding and Sucrose would just be for resistance shred. Other compositions that I suggested them do, possibly a Hu Tao overload composition, right? With, I believe they had official C6. So this would be another possibility for the Hu Tao side. And then I would maximize the damage here by adding Xiangling C6 as well. So I recommended that they invest in Xiangling, and they said, you know, they didn't have Xiangling built. So I was like, okay, so this is a great example for me to just add good artifacts while ignoring a set bonus so that you guys can see what it looks like. So I just chose generic pieces that I felt had the stats that she could use. Unfortunately, they did not have another pyro damage cup. Yeah, I just decided to add something random. But yeah, so you can see the stats here. This is what I would consider a no set bonus. Still having decent crit rate, a little bit of crit damage, and the recharge is a little bit low. So instead I opt to try to change to an energy recharge piece, and then I try to upgrade this piece a little bit, but they didn't have any fodder. So they let me use their artifact bottles. Not bad of a hit. And then I wanted to try to get to plus 16 here, but I think I rolled defense, unfortunately, so I just stopped. But yeah, so I switched this over to Xlice, and you can see that her crit rate, crit damage is basically 6120 with about 180 recharge. So whether to roll for home or not would be an improvement to their Hu Tao composition, right? And who to build next, I like most character would mostly be like, you know, potentially Kea. Building people for team synergy, I recommended them build Beidou. Also build Jean. Beidou, Jean, Chongyun, and Kea to be able to maximize more compositions than the ones that they currently had. Jean would be a standalone slot. Beidou would open up a little bit more synergistic choices relying on auto attack spam. Kea's rotational, and then Chongyun just for reverse melt. So yeah, AR56 account, mostly team composition design. They had multiple choices. I initially started with a mono pyro, but I realized that maybe we could do something a little bit less seen. Tried reverse melt Hu Tao, complete reverse vaporize DPS, and then I recommended them build other support characters in order to increase the flexibility of their team comps. Okay, so this next one is an AR52, a little bit of a young frog. So they had just started the Abyss here. The first Abyss that they did was last rotation. So they are just starting out. Taking a look at their weapons. Skyward Atlas, Skyward Pride, Aquila, Lost Prayer, Jade Spear, R5 Sacrificial on Xingqiu, Favonius Bennett, Favonius Fischl, Tartak R5 Rust, with Sith Mona. Yes, this was kind of an interesting account because they're a young frog, but they kind of like collected units and they never did Abyss until now. They have all these units though, and I'm pretty sure that they were kind of limited on their artifacts. They have all the meta compositions, so you guys can immediately see how easy it would be to actually build their comp. And I'm pretty sure that if I didn't say anything, you guys would be able to predict what I would recommend. You can see that they're pretty limited on their artifacts. They have only a single full row of plus 20s. So it was almost as if they were starting fresh in terms of artifact farming. And that's okay, because this is a PvE game and there's no rush. So what I recommended to them was I recommended them switch Bennett's weapon over to Aquila, because Bennett benefits more from the base attack to transfer over, and have Kaza be more on the support side, because Kaza really doesn't gain anything from Aquila. So this is, I believe, where I recommended them farm the new Inazuma dungeon, because they have basically no artifacts, or they have basically a really limited selection of artifacts currently. So this is where I start building their general compositions, right? In no particular order. Don't view this as like this is floor 9 composition. I'm just building them here and using these as placeholders. They can go on either side. It doesn't matter. It depends on what the floor needs. So the Ayaka Mona composition, which is the Freeze Ayaka, is very standard Ayaka composition. The second half is a reverse vaporized Diluc sort of build with Bennett as the buffer and then Kazo as the support. Having an Anemo support here would be beneficial for resistance shred and also for crowd control, in this case potentially for Sucrose. So both of those options are viable. Not gonna really recommend adding a Geo unit like Ningguang because Geo can shatter. They have a lot to use here, so it depends on their preference. But this is a pretty meta composition design, right? A reverse vaporized pyro DPS and a freeze cryo DPS. And again, I recommend it because they have basically no artifacts right now. I was like, okay, well, you can go to the Blizzard dungeon to farm for Ayaka pieces, but the only problem with that is that 4 Blizzard is kind of tough from a 0 Blizzard spot. So for example, if you're building Ayaka from a new and you don't have any artifacts, I would recommend that you start with a crit-based weapon, like Black Sword, for example. This will help you build your Ayaka early, and then later on, once you're more established, you can start building perfect pieces. So Crimson Dungeon specifically here is obviously best in slot for Diluc, but you farm basically no other pieces for any of your other characters, right? So you're spending all this resin just for a specific Diluc set when you could otherwise go to the Inazuma dungeon and farm for your entire team. So this is the last review of this speedrun session. They are a 36-star frog, so they've already maximized the Abyss, just to give you guys a little bit of a different perspective. So they have a 43-253 Ayaka with 2.4k attack. A little bit lower on the recharge side, but definitely very busted on the offensive department. So this is a cracked triple crown Ayaka build with 17.6 million Mora. So this was kind of a different account, right? Because they already 36 star. You guys get a little bit of a different perspective. They wanted me to do a little bit of artifact destruction. So they had 1,005 artifacts. They had some decent pieces to use. And I typically don't do this, but they did redeem the account review for a speedrun review. So yeah, a little bit of like a final review for this video, because we've already gone over pretty meta team composition design for 2.0 Abyss, etc. Yeah, just looking at their pieces right now, they have some pretty decent emblem pieces already. And you can see Twitch chat at the bottom left doing their thing. Yeah, so this is kind of just therapeutic artifact rolling. You can see I got a 17 flat HP and ruined that piece. As it is, that's just RNG, you know. This wasn't that terrible. This is just an off-piece HP percent piece, but then it rolled into a flat attack. They don't seem to lock their pieces. Please lock your pieces. And this one, little unfortunate. Little unfortunate. And then we tried this piece. So this one was insane, right? You guys can see this one so far. Started 4 line. It's only +4, but already has 14 crit damage. There's huge potential on this one. I used the piece that we just rolled, and that's right. Not bad. I had 1 roll into defense, but we hit the 20 crit damage mark, and I'm looking for a crit rate roll. Just like that. So we got a 10-20 piece for Oolong here. And then I just decided to roll this healing bonus piece for fun because it had those stats. And it rolled well, which kind of... And that's the 5 reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed the different twists on them. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support, and I wish you guys the best journey through your abyss. See you on the next video. Take care.